Janet and Richard had made their choice. Now it was time for me to make mine, because they'd regret it sooner than they expected. The weight of Janet's words lingered long after she left. I always knew my in-laws preferred Carrie, but I'd convinced myself it wasn't as obvious as it seemed, that deep down they valued all their family equally. But that night, they'd ripped away any pretense. They didn't even try to hide it anymore. They loved her children more than mine. Suddenly, a burst of giggles echoed from the other room. I turned to see Zoe and Tyler sprawled under their blanket fort, completely oblivious to what had just happened. My heart ached. They deserved so much better. I squared my shoulders and walked into the playroom with a forced smile. But as we snuggled on the couch later, the anger inside me refused to quiet down. I'd spent years trying to fit into the Palmer family, following their unspoken rules, hoping that if I just tried hard enough, they'd finally see me as crusty Carrie's equal. But I was done trying. I spent all night planning my next move. I felt like an evil mastermind. And in the morning, my time came. It was perfect. I woke up to a text from Carrie. Janet says you're being difficult about Thanksgiving. Why do you always have to create so much drama? I stared at the screen, my jaw clenching. Of course Janet had already complained to her. Me. So she told you she uninvited my kids but welcomed yours. The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, she just wants a peaceful dinner, Melissa. You know your twins can be a handful. A handful. Like they were something to be endured, not loved. Something in me snapped. Me. Enjoy your perfect Thanksgiving, Carrie. Count us out completely. I silenced my phone before she could respond. They didn't want my children at their precious table? Fine. I wouldn't be part of their world at all. And they were about to discover what that really meant. For years, I'd been their reliable go-to. When Richard needed someone to troubleshoot his computer issues, he called me. When Janet needed help coordinating family events, I was the one making calls and running errands. When they needed someone to pick up their prescriptions, I was their first call. And Carrie? She got to be the cherished daughter who did the bare minimum while receiving maximum praise. But if my family wasn't good enough for them, they weren't going to benefit from my help anymore. A week before Thanksgiving, Janet called again. I almost ignored it, but decided to answer. Hello? Melissa? She said, her tone cautious. I'm just checking in. I know you were upset, but I really hope you'll reconsider. We'd love to have you and Brian there. Not you and the kids. Just you and Brian. I took a deep breath. I meant what I said, Janet. If my children aren't welcome, I'm not coming either. She sighed like I was exhausting her. I just don't understand why you're being so stubborn. It's just one evening. You know how special Carrie's girls are to us. And there it was. The final painful confirmation that my children would never measure up in her eyes. You've made your position perfectly clear, I said flatly. Don't worry about us anymore. Melissa, don't be ridiculous. I ended the call before she could finish. And this time, I didn't feel like crying. I started small. When Richard texted asking if I could help set up his new printer that weekend, I left him on red. When Janet called asking if I could grab a few things for her at Costco, I let it go to voicemail. For years, I'd been their personal assistant. Always available, always reliable, but not anymore. It didn't take long for them to notice.